Hello everyone, my name is Helen Spencer-Oti from the Global People team at the University of Warwick. Welcome to this webinar on internationalisation in higher education. This is number 4 in our series, and today we're going to be looking at classroom diversity. First of all, I'm going to ask you to reflect on your own thoughts about classroom diversity and learning. Then we'll look at some data on what different student groupings think about it. Then we'll look at how we can plan strategically from this. And finally, what about next steps? So, what are your own views? How far do you agree or disagree with these points? Firstly, the more diverse our student body, the more our students learn. Students appreciate an interactive, multicultural classroom. Staff successfully facilitate an interactive, multicultural classroom. So, what are your thoughts on those points? Do you agree? Disagree? Or perhaps you think it's not easy to say. So we'll be looking at some data, and hopefully by the end you may have clearer thoughts or different thoughts, or maybe the same on those different points. So in the last webinar I showed you some data on academic integration. Here's some other data. This is from another batch of cohort batch with a larger number of students from UK universities. And you can see here we've been able to break it down into 3 regional groupings: home, EEA, that's European Economic Area, and Asia. Asia covering what the UN counts as Asia, which is East Asia, Southeast Asia, South Asia. Then if you look, although the overall pattern is somewhat similar, if you look at the table on the right-hand side of the slide, you'll see that home students attach 65%, or 65% of home students attach high importance or importance to academic integration, whereas the EEA and the Asian students attach much greater importance to it. 87% and 89% attach importance to it. That's a big difference. Then if we look at high experience, 53% of home students feel they're experiencing academic integration, 74% EEA and 70% Asia. When you look at the gap, to a certain extent, the gap isn't very large. There's not so much difference across the 3 groups, although it is bigger for the Asian students. But perhaps most worrying is the low proportion of home students that attach importance to academic integration. So this is something that we need to reflect on. Why is academic integration less important for home students? Just as a reminder, only 65% regarded it as important. 35% regarded it as relatively unimportant. So one way of following up is to look at the open comments that students put as they had opportunity to do that in the survey. It might give some hints. Some of the home students commented, "Cultural background is totally irrelevant. Ability is the only important thing in discussion." Do we agree with that? Another said, "I study mathematics, which is similar across many different cultures, so I feel being from different cultural backgrounds is not as important as in other subjects." So this raises the question about discipline. Are there differences across different disciplines? And does that mean that integration is less important in some subjects? And what about cultural background? Basically, I think people are saying it doesn't matter. Maybe there's little awareness of different perspectives, different viewpoints, different background, knowledge, and so on that can come from discussion. Another way of looking at more detail at the data is to look at the particular items within this construct. Now, there were 10 items in the GP on academic integration. And if we look at the top 4 for importance across these 3 regional groupings, we can see that actually participate comfortably in class was of top importance for all the students. Then, interaction opportunities with staff was also of great importance to all 3 groupings, slightly differently ordered, but still in the top 4. Confidence in seminar group members, home and EEA students regarded that as really important. Learn from working in groups, that was home and Asian students that attributed importance to it. Discussion of academic topics with diverse people, Asian and EEA students attached importance to it. So what we see from this is that actually across the 3 regional groupings, there's a lot of similarity in the relative importance that the students attach to those different aspects of classroom life and diversity. If, though, we then look at the gaps between importance and experience and look at the largest gaps, we see a slightly different picture. Interestingly, participate comfortably in class, there was a large gap for all 3 groups as well, and particularly large gap for the home students. Then with the others, and you'll see that the home and the EEA students, that's the one on the far left and the one on the far right, actually showed a very similar pattern in terms of gaps. For the Asian students, though, there was a somewhat different pattern. Their gaps were, apart from the participate comfortably in class, were larger for different topics. This brings us on then to the question, and that was hinted at in some of those items, that it isn't particularly an issue for the students, or it's that also interaction with staff and how far the staff, or they felt the staff were responsible. So we did some coding of the open comments and including these on staff management of a diverse classroom. And you can see we've broken it down into codings on good management and codings on poor management. So obviously we could only code according to the comments we got, and not everybody made open comments. But what I think you can see from here is that the number of comments on poor management were actually quite significant, and especially from home students. One that comes out a lot is little encouragement to speak. Sometimes among the home students, difficulty engaging international students, but actually the international students often felt exactly the same way. So, lots of questions again for reflection. Why do home students attach less importance to academic integration than EEA and Asian students? We've mentioned that before. Why is participation in class perceived as problematic by students of all backgrounds? In what ways, perhaps, do academic staff need to improve their management of diverse classrooms? Are these comments by the students unfair in some way, or is there some kind of misunderstanding going on? So, we could gain some further insights by doing some more detailed analysis of the data. For example, do independent variables have a significant effect? Is there an effect by discipline? Are some disciplines more prone to the impact of cultural factors? We need focus group interviews with staff and students. This is very much the student perspective. Our GEP for staff gives a complementary view, and analysing that data can give a different picture, and also focus group interviews with both staff and students to get a more detailed picture. So, if you're interested in following up, do have a look on our website. We've published quite a bit on our data, so do take a look at our publications. They're listed in the Knowledge Exchange section of the website. If you're particularly interested in classroom management, working in groups, our e-course is very popular and is something that actually both home and international students find difficult, whether it's a diverse classroom or not. So there's lots of tips and advice and student experience stories in that e-course. And do take a look at our other webinars on internationalisation, the earlier ones in this series, and hopefully we'll be developing more before too long. So thanks for listening. If you have any questions, do add them to the chat window now. Or if you'd rather ask us by email or get in touch later, do feel free to email us. Thanks again for listening.